What is up, my ducks and drakes? Welcome to the Crowded Lake. Today we're reading chapters 1 and 2 of Tomorrow, a standard science fanfic by Bekka911. This isn't the first book in the series, this is in fact the fourth. So if you have not heard the first three, which is Roman, Virgil, and Logan's books, I'd recommend you do that beforehand. Also, support the author and the fic using the description links in the below. Yes, there's also a link to a Google form where you can recommend fics for the future. I have been reading them, and I'm glad that people have started submitting. The rules for submission are in the form. With that, let's go on to Chapter 1. Love. Patton had learned could be a poison. Unrequited love was the most common, simply loving the wrong person and receiving nothing but pain and rejection. Throughout Thomas's life, Patton had dealt with the agony of not being loved back. It had happened too often, had scarred something in him and Thomas. There was a warness buried in them now, a fear that maybe they would have their feelings returned. Love itself was a poison, because love was not eternal. Thomas's latest breakup had simply strengthened Patton's knowledge that nothing really lasted. He and Thomas had loved this one deeply, wholly, and now they were both hurting. Thomas was hurting, and Patton could offer nothing but his own shattered feelings. Patton? Virgil was quiet, and his touch was gentle as he put a hand on Patton's shoulder. Are you okay? A redundant question. Virgil knew, and had ventured into Patton's room anyway. Patton didn't even bother faking a smile. I miss him, he said, feeling tired. His chest hurt. He couldn't be happy today. I know. Virgil settled beside him on the large bed, letting out a soft breath. Patton leaned into his warmth, defeated. They both sat for a moment, saying nothing. Virgil said tentatively, I'm proud of you for not ignoring this. It's okay to miss him. Heck, I miss him too. I bet Roman misses him. Thomas always misses him. Patton just closed his eyes and sighed deeply, relaxing against his friend. Virgil's words were sweet, but Patton's hurt was rooted deep within his chest. It would take time to truly move on. Sure, they'd talked it through in the video, but nostalgia and heartbreak struck randomly, and Patton didn't have the mental energy to deal with them. I'm tired, he said, huffing slightly in amusement as Virgil snorted. As the king of tired, I name you heir to the throne of insomnia. Virgil's voice was colored with humor, but Patton could hear the veiled worry. The anxious side nudged Patton slightly. Seriously, though, Pat, you should get some sleep. You look exhausted. I can't really sleep, he admitted. I don't know why. I think I do, Virgil said. And though Patton waited, the anxious side didn't elaborate after that. Thanks for checking in on me, Virgil. Virgil gave him a shaky smile, full of silent understanding, and Patton closed his eyes. Virgil shifted. You gotta go to sleep now. Right? Patton shook his head, eyes still closed. He just wanted to stay like this, with someone supporting his heavy, heavy head. He could feel Virgil's shoulders move with each breath the anxious side took. It was soothing. Virgil was soothing. Patton was so tired. Can we watch a movie? He asked Virgil quietly. All of us. Something Disney? In Roman's room? Virgil nodded, grabbed his hand, and they disappeared with a soft pop. It took very little effort to convince Logan and Roman to join them, and Virgil wondered if it was because they were all missing him today. It made sense. If Patton was missing him, then Thomas would be missing him, so then they all would be missing him because they were a part of Thomas. I'll be there shortly, Logan said, when Virgil approached him about it. Has Patton suggested, a different attire? No. Virgil frowned as Logan smiled lightly. It was still kind of strange to see Logan smiling. Should he have? Logan waved a hand, and for once Virgil didn't feel the sting of dismissal. Mention it to him. He should know what I mean. Virgil nodded, still confused, and Logan shut his door. Considering Roman hadn't been in his room when they'd appeared, he could be almost anywhere. Virgil considered just leaving him. He'd feel that people were messing about in his room anyway, but then decided against it. They all knew Roman was still insecure. Who knew what the results would be if they excluded him from that? Prince Charming, he called, stepping into the studio. Yo, Captain Daydream, you in here? Why are you shouting into an empty room? Roman asked from behind him, and Virgil whirled around with wide eyes. Virgil? Virgil swatted him. You scared me, he hissed. Roman sniggered slightly. Oh, sorry, he said unapologetically. Virgil didn't feel the sting of humiliation either. They'd all moved past hurting each other. You made it so easy, just standing there, shouting. Why are you looking for me? Virgil took a few deep breaths to calm his racing heart, and then said, Patton's requested a movie night in your room, with all of us. Roman's mouth tightened into a thin line. I've got work to do, he said in a pained voice. Really, I'd love to, but there's some ideas I've got to implement before tomorrow if I'm to follow Logan's schedule, and Roman, it's one of those days for Patton. Roman's eyes softened, and he sighed. He offered Virgil a gentle smile. Then of course. He grabbed Virgil's hand to move them, and all Virgil could think was that Roman smelled ever so slightly of chocolate. Patton changed into his cat onesie as soon as Virgil returned with Roman in tow. Logan was coming. Patton had been assured, but he'd had a strange request. We should all wear onesies, he said brightly, beaming at Virgil and Roman. They're so soft and comfortable, and it's movie night. They're practically a must. Roman changed immediately, donning a plain gold onesie with his red sash embroidered onto it. I've had this in my closet for ages, the royal admitted with a grin. Ever since I caught Logan wearing his unicorn one. Virgil snorted. Yeah, right. Logan in a onesie. Likely story. Your lack of faith in me hurts, Virgil. Logan's voice was amused, and Patton giggled in delight at the unicorn onesie Logan was wearing. Virgil just gaped. I am prepared to sacrifice some of my dignity to help Patton be happy, and they are rather comfortable. Virgil made a squeaky sound. You make jokes, and you're wearing a onesie, Virgil said, sitting heavily on the bed next to Patton. My life is a lie. All four of them laughed, including Logan, which was delightful. Already, some of Patton's sadness had slipped away. What movie shall we begin with? Roman asked, conjuring a large bowl of popcorn. Tangled! Patton and Virgil shouted at the same time, glancing at each other and laughing. Tangled it is. Chapter 2. Patton dreamed. It wasn't anything cohesive or linear. He dreamed of a snake hissing, the color yellow and feeling small. When he woke, entangled in a pile of limbs and warmth, he felt inexplicably cold. It's 2 a.m, if you're wondering. Moving slowly, and being careful not to jostle Virgil or Roman too much, Patton rubbed his eyes tiredly. Why aren't you sleeping then? He asked Logan, who was sitting on a chair beside the bed rather than sleeping. Logan flipped a page in his book he was reading. There are still limits I cannot adjust, habits I have yet to break. Close physical contact like that makes me uneasy. If Patton hadn't been so tired, he might have used some tact. But alas, he was tired, and so just waved a hand and said, Nonsense, you look exhausted. Just lay down. Even if you don't want to join the pile, it's not like there isn't room? Indeed, the three sides took up only half the bed, entangled as they were, and so Logan would have plenty of space to sleep without feeling uneasy. "Go back to sleep, Patton," Logan said quietly. "I'll be okay." Patton might have argued if an inexplicable heaviness hadn't washed over him and sank back down into the warmth and comfort of his friends. Closing his eyes, he'd whispered a slurred goodnight. Only minutes later, just as he was dropping back into a pool of darkness, he felt the bed dip slightly, as a fourth body lay down. He smiled, because that chased away the lingering sadness of it, and then he let sleep overcome him. When he woke up the next day, it had become someone was gently pulling themselves away from the pile of bodies. "Roman?" Patton murmured, reaching for him slightly. The royal hushed him gently. "It's still early," he explained in a whisper, breathing out as Virgil shifted. "Thomas is still asleep, but today is supposed to be a creative day. I have to get started." Patton pouted, but let him go. "Okay," he sighed, cuddling into Virgil, as if to absorb his warmth. Patton was still freakishly cold, even though the room was of the perfect temperature. Roman shuffled about quietly before striding out, dressed as normal. Patton settled back down, ready to accept Virgil's subconscious affection, but the anxious side let out a sleep snuffle. He rolled away, towards Logan. Unbidden, tears rose to Patton's eyes, and he worked in a shaky breath at the sudden burst of emotion. It was stupid. This was stupid. It was just one guy he couldn't get over. "Patton." Virgil's slurred whisper just 'cause Patton to bit his lip. "Patton, what's wrong?" "Everything." "Nothing," he said quietly. "Go back to sleep, Virgil. It's early." There was movement, and a hand grabbed his wrist and tugged. "Come on," Virgil muttered. "I'm tired, you're tired, and Logan is actually a cuddler despite his claims. We're gonna make a new pile, and you're gonna sleep. And when we wake, you'll feel better." "Does that ever work for you?" "No, but I'm tired. Come on, humor me." Patton allowed himself to be tucked into Virgil's side as the anxious trait flopped haphazardly over Logan's torso. The logical side didn't stir. Patton wiped his face, feeling stupid as he clung to Virgil's patchwork purple onesie. There wasn't even anything to be upset about. He was just sensitive. But Virgil was really warm, and Patton was so tired, so he snuggled into Virgil, forced his tears away, and embraced sleep like one would enrage an old friend. Logan had, in fact, been awake. He'd been disturbed by Roman's departure and had contemplated leaving himself. He had work to do as well. In fact, he should really be up and moving, but Virgil had rolled over, and then Patton's breathing had stuttered, and Logan knew he wasn't going anywhere. He totally was not a cuddler. Virgil was a liar. He fought to keep his breathing steady as Virgil unceremoniously threw himself across the logical side, but he managed to keep himself quiet because it seemed that this new arrangement had helped calm Patton significantly. He stayed awake until he was sure Patton had fallen asleep, and then he curled into Virgil, seeking warmth and comfort. He'd move later, before the other two woke up. He just needed the warmth, because they were sleeping on top of the covers like heathens, and he was slightly cold. When he fell asleep, he dreamed of a snake hissing, the color yellow, and feeling small. Thank you all so much for listening. If you want to hear more stuff like this, go ahead and check out my channel. I have a whole playlist of these kind of videos. If you'd like to see any of my other works, the description has links to all my social medias, like my Instagram, my TikTok, my Discord, and I have an Etsy shop where I sell cool beaded things. This is my favorite fanfiction series of all time, and so I'm super happy to be reading it once again with Bekka's permission. Once again, thank you so much for listening, and much like Logan trying not to make Patton upset by leaving, do your best.